Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Keipert Labs. In this video we're going to go through in some more detail the inner structure of the Earth. Okay, so far we've looked at this idea that the Earth we consider to be made up of four spheres: the biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere and the lithosphere. And then we've been spending a little bit of time focusing particularly on the lithosphere, or the solid kind of portion of the Earth, the rocks and all of the things that are beneath our feet all the way down to the center of the Earth. And so what we're going to do now, given that you've completed the activity where you made the scale model or the scale diagram of the Earth, we're going to go through a little bit more information about each of the layers and kind of introducing some ones that are perhaps a little less familiar to you. So here we go. Here's our kind of cross-section of the Earth. Alright, so we've got this kind of layer down the bottom here, starting from the center and working our way out. Okay? So we've got the inner core. Next comes the outer core. And now, I'm going to write it over this side and you'll see why in a sec. We talk about the mantle. Okay, the mantle over here. And then right up the top here, we have our crust. Okay, so we're going to add a few extra details in a minute, but just identifying these kind of four main layers. Okay, so looking at the crust, okay, so we're thinking about, so it's our outermost layer. Okay, it's also very thin, and it's, so we would say, so it's thicker under the continents, and then thinner under the oceans. Okay, we know that it's not all the same thickness all the way around. Okay, but it's very, very thin relative to the actual size of the Earth. You know, when you consider that we looked in that activity that this distance from here to here is almost 6,400 kilometers, and the crust itself is only a couple of kilometers thick. Okay, it's like the eggshell on the outside of the egg. Okay, it's very, very thin. Okay, and then we have our mantle. Okay, so mantle is our kind of soft semi-liquid layer. Okay, so it's kind of, we consider it to be in two kind of sections, upper and lower mantle, that we kind of see some different properties. And we're going to go through those in a moment, but I just want to talk through these four kind of main sections first. Okay, so then we get, as we continue further down, we get to the outer core. Okay, so by this point we're about halfway through the thickness of the Earth. So then we get to the outer core, which is liquid. Okay, which is hard to believe when you're thinking about the majority of the Earth. So it's liquid. It's made up of mostly iron or nickel. Okay, it's actually quite difficult for us to know for certain exactly what's down there because you can't exactly go down and test. So we have to use some indirect techniques to find out. Okay, but it's the only completely liquid layer. Okay, the mantle itself is kind of soft, what we would say like a cross between a liquid and a solid. It's a bit of both. Okay, and then we get our way down to the inner core, which is solid iron and nickel. Okay, so by this point that we've gotten all the way down to this inner layer, the reason that it's solid is that we have intense pressure at this point. You think about, you know, this is about 5,000 kilometers down, so there's about 5,000 kilometers worth of all of this rock above this portion that presses down, that's pulling towards that center because of gravity. Okay, so we've got intense pressure. Okay, and so even though it's incredibly hot, which would normally make things like this into be liquid, because of that intense pressure, that it maintains that solid structure. Okay, so we can see that we've got these four kind of main layers so far. Okay, but then what we can recognize is that actually we talked about this idea that the upper and lower mantle have some slightly different properties. Okay, and so what we notice is that we have this kind of area, this kind of upper mantle sort of area here. Okay, and then what I'm also going to do is to show kind of this sort of bluish sort of layer here. Okay, to add in some extra details here. So what we would say, so this is our upper mantle, okay, and so what happens is that the crust and this part of the upper mantle is what we refer to as the lithosphere. Okay, technically speaking, we don't actually refer to this portion down here as part of the lithosphere because we don't actually get to interact with anything directly down here. But the reason that we look at this is that we can see that this part of the upper mantle, the bit that I've shaded in red, combined with the crust, they kind of connect together and they kind of behave in these chunks that we're going to look at in a subsequent video about called tectonic plates. Okay, and so tectonic plates are made up of chunks of the lithosphere that are broken into sections. Okay, and so what happens is that perhaps there's a break that's there, and that we have these kind of so perhaps even if I exaggerate it a little bit and actually kind of suggest that we've got this kind of border there, or this kind of break that happens in places typically covered by the oceans. Okay, so you imagine kind of got ocean that kind of extends not all the way down to here, but just, this is a bit of an exaggeration. Okay, but this idea that sometimes we have gaps where we have these chunks of the lithosphere that meet at a boundary in the middle, right? This joining kind of point. And so what happens is that we recognize the idea that these tectonic plates can move. They slide very slowly. Some of them are sliding apart from each other, some of them are pushing towards one another, some of them are sliding horizontally past one another, so they're grinding past. But what we can recognize is that they're actually they're floating, or they're kind of sliding on this soft kind of bit underneath, which is the bit that I've labeled in blue. And that bit down here is what we would call the asthenosphere. Okay, it's going to be it's a difficult kind of word to say quickly. Okay, but what it is this kind of molten plastic malleable layer. Okay, now by molten it's kind of like I'll rewrite this. Molten. Okay, so it's actually like this solid that has melted that remains kind of in this oozing sort of state because of it's very hot. We say that it's plastic, not like the plastic like you would make spoons out of, but it's plastic as far as it can change. It changes shape. Okay, it's not fixed in its kind of shape, that it's able to kind of ooze and flow. Its shape is able to be changed. That's why we call plastic things plastic, because we can make them change their shape and then make them set into things that we want, like spoons and knives and stuff. And we say that it's malleable, that is, it's able to actually kind of be squashed into different sort of shapes. I mean, malleable comes from this idea of metals being able to be hammered into sheets. Okay, but we would say that this malleable, it's this changeable, oozing kind of layer underneath. But what it has is that these chunks of the lithosphere, our tectonic plates, actually float on the asthenosphere, and that's what helps actually make them move. Okay, so it's important that we can identify that here in order to be able to explain why the chunks of the lithosphere on top do what they do. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.